And we'll bend our knees, bringing the soles of the feet to the mat. So coming into a bridge pose to start. Pushing down into the feet. Let's use our glutes to lift the hips just nice and low. We're going to stay low enough that our shoulder blades and our back ribs are still touching the ground, so we're not lifting too high. Let's start with a little bit of movement for the wrist. So we'll pick up that right hand, so your right palm is up toward the ceiling, and we'll take the fingers and pull back, coming into a wrist extension stretch. Keep pushing into the feet though, so big toe, pinky toe, and heel. Keep breathing that expansive breath into the rib cage. Switch hands, left palm up, pull back. Keep pushing the feet into the ground. Breathing into the side and back ribs. Hands are going to lower back down to your sides. Take a breath in. As you exhale, as slowly as you can, try to lower down like an inchworm. You're trying to lower down one vertebra at a time. And once you get down, we'll bring the hands behind the head. Elbows come in nice and tight if you're trying to touch elbow to elbow or elbow to forehead. Take a breath in. On an exhale, feel your pelvic points draw in, your belly button pull down as you lift just enough to get off the shoulder blade. Now we really want to feel like we're leaning our head back into our hands so we're not yanking on the neck to lift. Inhale and lower. Exhale, draw those pelvic points in, lift off your shoulder blades, but feel your head lean back into your hands. Inhale to lower. Adding on, exhale, lift up, lean your head back. Feel those pelvic points draw in. We're going to turn the chest just an inch to the right. Try to stay off your right shoulder blade. Left arm will reach across toward that right leg. Let's open and close that left fist a couple times. So we'll fist the fire here, warming up the wrist. And then bring that left hand back behind the head as you come back to center. Inhale, lower the head down. Exhale, lift off the shoulder blades, lean your head back. Now turn 1 inch to the left, staying off that left shoulder blade if you can. Right arm reaches across the body toward that left leg. Let's open and close that right fist a couple times. Working that right wrist and forearm. Hand comes back behind the head as you come back to center. Inhale, lower head and shoulders down. We're going to do that one more time each side. Exhale, lift up. Feel your belly button draw down, lean your head back. Turn 1 inch to the right, staying off that right shoulder blade. Left arm reaches across, open and close the fist. Hand comes back behind the head, back to center. Inhale, lower down. Last time, exhale, lift up. Lean your head back, feel the belly button draw down. 1 inch, we turn to the left, staying off that left shoulder blade. Right arm reaches across, open and close the hand. Keep feeling that belly button pull down. Right hand behind the head, back to center. Inhale, lower down. Release your hands. Let's pick up the right foot. Little circle with that right ankle, both directions. Now bring your hands right to the front of the pelvis just to hold the front body still as we circle this right hip. So you want to circle both directions, but we're trying not to rock the low back side to side because we're just trying to move within that right hip joint. Right foot flexes, so your toes pull back toward the shin. Let's cross the right ankle over the left knee or thigh. We're in that figure 4. Now recheck that you can feel the back of the skull on the ground, so maybe the chin has to be slightly toward the throat. You can feel the shoulder blades on the ground, and you can feel the sacrum right above the tailbone. If it feels good, you can take your right hand, start to push that right thigh a little bit further away, stretching the outer right hip. But we want to do this without arching the back, so not lifting the back off the ground. Breathing into the side and back ribs. Release that right foot down. Pick up your left foot. Let's circle the ankle both directions. Hand holds the pelvis still, so just bring your hands right to the front of the pelvis as we circle the left hip. Couple circles in both directions. Try not to rock that low back side to side. Flex your left foot, toes pull back toward the shin, cross the left ankle over right near thigh. Check in with that triple S. Maybe left hand comes to the left thigh if you'd like, but don't let that low back arch. So keep the sacrum right above the tailbone down. Checking with your breath. Let's release it. We'll hug both knees in, take a little rock side to side or up and down. We'll come into a seated position. Sitting however you'd like with that triple S. So let's picture that we have that broom behind our back, touching the back of our skull, shoulder blades, and sacrum. Bring your palms forward and really spread the fingers out wide. And then keep the palms facing forward, but just try to bring all the fingers to touch. And then open the fingers and bring it back in. So just try that a couple more times. You'll notice you might feel it in the wrist as we move the fingers out and then back in. Now hold with the fingers spread, and we'll try to lower just the pinkies down. The ring finger, just the middle finger, index finger, and then thumbs crossed in front. Pull your knuckles in toward the forearm. So this is flexing the wrist. Take a big breath in and out. And then we'll circle. So we're getting a little bit of everything for that wrist mobility. Let's do that one more time. Palms forward. Now spread the fingers wide. And then bring the fingers in to touch. Spread the fingers wide. Bring it back in. Try that a couple more times. Abduction and adduction of the fingers. Now hold with the fingers nice and spread. Start at your pinkies. And then the fourth finger. And really try to move one finger as far as it goes before the next finger goes. Thumbs crossed in front, pull the knuckles back in. Take a breath in and out. And then circle both ways. Good, you can shake out the hands a little bit. Now we're going to put weight in our wrists. So we're going to come to our quadruped onto hands and knees. Shoulders right over your wrist. Walk those knees in a little bit tighter. So hips are right over the knees. We've got our nice neutral spine. So you want to imagine balancing something on our lower back. So feel your low belly lift up toward the low back a little bit. Lift the front of your throat up so the ears don't drop below the shoulders. We're going to keep pressing into the fingers. Try to lift the heels of the hands up. And then with control, lower the bottoms of the hands back down. So we're just lifting and lowering, working the wrist like a little wrist push-up, lifting and lowering, but we're keeping the fingers down. So we're working that wrist extension as we get those heels of the hands back down, but we want to make sure we're using our core to support so that we're not slamming the heels down. It's a nice controlled lift and lower. One more. Now, as we come to cat-cow, if you want to give your wrist a break, you can come onto your fist. You can stay on your hands, but maybe turn the fingers out to the side if that feels good. Whatever you need as we cat-cow here. So let's get that spine moving in both directions. Extension of the spine as we arch the back and drop the belly. Flexion of the spine as we round the back and spread those shoulder blades apart. We'll come back onto our hands for downward dog. Tuck the toes, lift your hip creases straight up. Let's keep the knees nice and bent so that we can let the heels lift. We can really feel the hips lift up. Now, if it feels good, you can pedal the feet out, straightening one leg a little bit more at a time to stretch the calves. But make sure your neck feels relaxed so you can gently nod the head yes and no. Big bend in your knees. We're going to walk our hands back toward the feet into that happy squat. So it's like a super bent knee forward fold. Picture that broom behind your back. Let's push into the feet and rise up. Pausing at the back to check in with that stack. So we want ears right over the shoulders, shoulders right over our rib cage, and our rib cage right over our pelvis. We'll pick up our right foot. So you can always have the toes on the ground for balance. You can pick it up a little bit higher, doesn't matter. Let's bring the hands forward, palms forward. So this is wrist extension. Now we'll try to pull the fingers back in toward the forearms, wrist flexion. Palms come forward again, and we'll step the right foot forward. Pick up the left foot and balance on that right leg, or keep the left toes on the ground. Flex the wrist, pull those fingers back toward the forearm, and then palms forward. Step the left foot forward. We're going to do that 2 more times. Pick the right foot, or just balance on the ball of the foot. Flex the wrist, pull the fingertips in toward the forearms, and then extend the wrist, palms forward. Step the right foot forward last time. Pick up that left foot. Flex the wrist, fingers curl back in. Extend the wrist, palms forward. Step the feet together. Good, let's recheck that nice neutral position. Reach those arms forward and up. Shoulder blades lift up like you're trying to get your armpits up towards your ears. Exhale, big bend in your knees. Hips move back, torso comes forward. We're going to come to quadruped. Hands and knees. Shoulders right over your wrist. Now we're going to start with just a little rock side to side on the wrist. So we're going to let our shoulders kind of rock right and left. So we're putting more weight into the left wrist and then more weight into the right wrist. Now stick with side to side, or if it feels good, start rocking forward and back. If forward doesn't feel good, you don't have to rock forward. That's a lot of wrist extension. Good. Find that just regular quadruped. We're going to step our right foot forward, coming into our low lunge. We'll stay on the left knee. You could always have something under the knee if that feels better, like a pillow or even a yoga block. Let's lift up, and again, just like standing, make sure our ears are over the shoulders, shoulders are over the ribs, ribs are over the pelvis. Give this left glute a little squeeze. We're going to bring the left palm forward, but the fingers facing down this time. And then just bring the elbow in toward the body, and we'll take the right fingers to pull the left fingers back. So now we're just in a little wrist stretch while we stretch the front of the left hip. Check in with your breath. Good, hands come down. Back to quadruped. If you would like to be on fists, you could be on fists, or you could be on your palms. Reach your right leg back for a 3-legged quadruped. So the toes are just off the ground. We're lifting the belly. We've got that feeling of a broom behind our back. Now try to keep the spine as long as you can and reach your left arm forward. Let's try to bring our left palm forward like we're trying to push against a wall. Now holding here with the torso and the leg, we'll flex that left wrist, pulling the fingertips back in toward the forearm, and then extend the left wrist, palm forward. Flex the wrist, pull the fingertips in, extend the wrist. One more time. Flex the wrist, pull the fingers in, extend the wrist, palms forward. Good. Left hand comes down, right knee comes down. Low lunge on the other side. Left foot forward, lift up, find that neutral position like we have that broom behind our back. Now our right palm comes forward with the fingers down, and we'll come into that wrist stretch. So you can pull it in toward the body if that feels better. So we're just stretching out that right wrist. Give that right glute a little bit of a squeeze so you feel a stretch in the front of the right hip. Check in with your breath. Both hands come down. Bring that left knee back underneath you for quadruped. Repicture that broom behind your back. Left leg extends back. Now, if you want to keep the toes on the ground, that's fine. If you want to float them off the ground, that's fine too. Right hand forward, right palm forward. So we're just going to do that same motion of the wrist, kind of like we're waving. We're bending at the wrist forward and back. And as we're doing this, we're working our core stability. We're working that left arm and left shoulder. Imagine balancing a glass of water on your lower back. So you want to be really still. Good, lower it back down to quadruped. If you want to take a down dog, do that. If you want to take a child's pose and roll the wrist or give them a break, do that. If you want to cat-cow on your fist, whatever option feels good. Let's walk it forward to the front of the mat. Big bend in the knees. Reach those arms forward and up. Shoulder blades lift up, but reach your tailbone straight down. Exhale, hinge, hips move back. Big bend in the knees. Hands come down, quadruped. So again, we'll come to that hands and knees position. This time, we're going to try to come to the top of the hand. You can do one at a time. This is wrist flexion. Same thing, you can rock forward and back. You can rock side to side. So we're doing one hand at a time, either hand first, getting into that wrist flexion. And then let's come onto the palm of the hand and switch. Come to the back of the other hand. You can be totally still and breathe. You can rock side to side. You can rock forward and back. So we're just on this part of the hand, doing a little rocking. Come back onto the palm, step your right foot forward again. This time we'll tuck the left toes. Same lunge, we want that feeling of the broom behind our back. Arms come out to the sides. You're gonna open and close the hands here. So that same fist to fire, we're just doing both hands at a time. Make sure this left glute is nice and active so we still get that nice stretch in the front of the left hip. One more breath here. We'll stay in our lunge, but reach both arms up. Right fingers are going to grab onto your left wrist. And let's just lift that left wrist up as much as we can. Keep your tailbone reaching down to the ground so we're not arching the lower back. Good, release it, hands down, quadruped. Left foot forward, same type of lunge. We'll tuck the toes, lift up. Ears over the shoulders, over the pelvis, arms out. Make fist, open and close. So make sure that right glute now is getting a little squeeze to help us balance, to stretch the front of that right hip. Working up into the forearms. Both arms come up. Now your left fingers grab the right wrist. Lift up as much as you can. Imagine that you could breathe right into the right side of your rib cage or the right side of your torso. Good, bring it back down. Either child's pose, downward dog, or cat-cow, wherever you want to be for a few breaths. Focus on that inhale, expanding into the ribs, front, side, and back. Let's walk our feet forward. Bent knee forward fold. Push into the feet, rise up. Lift those fingertips way up. Hands come down, step your right foot back into a high lunge this time. So it doesn't have to step back very far. We want to soften that right knee, but make sure we're not arching the lower back so that tailbone's going straight down toward the ground. Our glutes are active, our legs are active. Palms come forward, so it's that wrist extension. Let's push the palms forward. Our shoulder blades move away from the spine. And then bring the backs of the hands back toward you and squeeze those shoulder blades in without bending the elbows. Push the palms forward, shoulder blades spread away from each other, and then retract those shoulder blades. They squeeze in toward the spine. So that a couple more times. So we want to see if we can do this without rounding and arching the back. So it's just the shoulder blades moving. Good. Arms come up now. Let's roll the wrists. You could roll your wrist with the fingers or fist. Roll both directions, giving them a little bit of a break. Good. Release the hands. Turn to the right. So we're going to face the side of the mat. Heels in, toes out, and we'll bend the knees. So we're here, squat. Arms reach out to the sides. Let's work the wrist here. So in our squat, we're gonna do that same wrist flexion and extension where the fingers come in toward the forearms, and then palms forward, fingers up toward the ceiling. So we're getting that same movement in the wrist as we just hold here in our squat. If you want to work the legs a little bit more, you can pulse here in the squat while we work the wrist. Either option. Good, straighten your legs, step it forward toward the front of the mat. And now we'll step our left foot back into that same high lunge. Left knee is soft, make sure the tailbone's not sticking up behind you, but straight down. Arms are gonna come up this time, so a different movement with the shoulder blades. I'm just gonna lower down for a second. We're gonna lift our shoulder blades up toward the ears and then back down. So again, it's like the armpits trying to lift up toward the ears and back down. So you're gonna keep going in that, lifting and lowering the shoulder blades. That's elevation of the scapula as they come up toward the ears and depression of the scapula as they go back down. Okay, now keep the arms up. Let's roll the wrists. You could do this with fist or with the fingers out. Turn to the left, so we're going to face the side of the mat again. Heels in, toes up, bend your knees. Now check again, that tailbone's reaching down. We've got that imaginary broom taped behind our back. Arms out, palms forward. Add that wrist flexion and extension. You can be still with the legs or you can pulse. Either option. Making sure to keep that 360 breath all the way into the rib cage. Good, straighten the legs, come back to the front of the mat. We'll step our right foot back into a warrior two. So right foot will step back, left knee is bent. Let your hips face whatever side of the mat feels good, as long as that pelvis is upright. Now arms will come out to the side. We're gonna do a little work for the shoulders and our rotator cuff. So we'll rotate the shoulders, it's external rotation. That's gonna flip the palms up a little bit. And then internally rotate so your palms face back down. So it's a small amount of movement coming from the shoulder. It will look like the arm is rotating and the wrist is kind of flipping up and down, but the movement is coming from the shoulder. So we're not just moving from the wrist joint, little rotation there. It's the whole arm moving coming from the shoulder. So you might start to feel kind of warm around your shoulders. Those are your rotator cuff muscles. Good, you can pause with the palms facing down. One time we'll take a little reverse here. Right arm to the right leg, left arm up and over. Really breathe into the left side of the ribs. And then back to your warrior two. Left forearm comes to the hip or the thigh. Right arm reaches up and over. Really push down into that right foot like you're trying to leave your footprint on the ground. Come back up. Parallel your feet. We're going to face the side of the mat for side lunges. Arms will come out and we'll circle the wrist as we side lunge. So you can side lunge really slow and stretchy. You can go a little bit faster. Whatever feels good as you work the legs and get a little bit of this wrist mobility. Adding these circles. You still want that feeling of a broom taped behind the back. Come up, back to the top of the mat, and we'll switch sides. Left foot steps back. We're opening into that warrior two. Check that that pelvis is nice and neutral. Tailbone is reaching down. Arms come out. We're moving from the shoulders. Externally rotate. That brings the palms up. And then internally rotate the palms down. Stay active in the legs as we work the arms. So we're still pushing into the feet. One more times. You can end with the palms facing down. One time, let's reverse. Right arm up and over. Warrior two. Variation, right forearm to the hip or thigh, left arm up and over. Now push down into that left foot like you're trying to leave your footprint into the mat. Back to warrior two, face the side of the mat for your side lunges. Maybe this time you roll the wrist with the fingers out, or you can keep it with the fist. Either option, we're really sitting back into the hips. Picturing that broom touching the back of our skull, our shoulder blades, and our sacrum. Good, come back up to a standing position. We'll do a little bit of balancing as we continue to work the wrist. We're gonna start in a tree pose. So we'll pick up the right foot, wherever you want to have it. You can have toes on the ground, a little bit higher, whatever you want. But check in with this left hip. We don't want it sinking out to the side. So we need to be really supportive in this left hip and glute. Lots of action there. We're gonna bring the hands together. So even just prayer hands in yoga, that's wrist extension. This might feel like a stretch for some people. So we're gonna stay here, but try to bring the fingers forward, maybe even down. And then back up, bring the fingers in toward the body. So we're just adding this little movement here, working our balance, working the stability of that left hip, and getting a little bit more movement for the wrist. Really push into that left big toe. Firm that left glute. Good, release that right foot down. You can shake out the wrist, maybe that left foot if it feels good, and we'll switch. Pick up your left foot. So toes on the ground is always an option. Toes somewhere on that right leg is an option. Nice supportive right hip, so maybe a little squeeze in that glute. Hands come together, so this is wrist extension. Let's switch this time, actually. Let's do backs of the hands together, fingers down, wrist flexion. Now maybe we bring the fingers in toward the body. Maybe fingers go out forward. This one might have a little less movement, that's okay. So we're getting that same little rotation in the wrist, but the backs of our hands are together now instead of the palms. So we're doing this little bit of movement or rotation in that wrist flexion now. Pushing into that right big toe. Good, release the hands, shake out that right foot. We're gonna come back to quadruped. And this time, we'll do some circles. So as we bring shoulders over the wrist, we're just gonna circle our body weight so that we're loading different parts of the wrist. So a little circular motion, couple times in both directions. Good, coming into a seated position. Sit however you want, but let's keep that triple S. Right arm is gonna come up. Lift the right shoulder blade so you're trying to get your armpit up towards your ear. Grab on just like we did in that lift. You're gonna take the left fingers, grab onto the wrist. See how much you can lift that right side up. So we're trying to lift the right side of the ribs, right shoulder blade, add a little bit more of a side bend left if that feels good, but keep your right hip down. Pulling on that wrist. Bring it back up and let's just switch. So left arm is up, lift that left shoulder blade up, right fingertips grab on, lift and pull, 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 add a little bit of a side bend. Breathing into the left side of the ribs. And bring it back up. Last little thing, we're just gonna have our right arm, it can be up, it can be forward. We're gonna start at the elbow. Right at that elbow crease, and you can squeeze and pull up like you're squeezing a tube of toothpaste all the way up to the wrist. Get a little pull there, and try that a couple times. Just a little bit of a release for the forearms that we worked quite a bit. And then switch sides, make your way over to that left elbow, and a little squeeze and pull. Whatever amount of pressure feels good. And let's just release the hands. You can close the eyes. Hands can end somewhere on your laps or on your ribs. And just take a couple breaths here. See if you can feel that inhale, ribs expanding side to side. Inhale, ribs expanding front and back. And just end by sending one grateful thought out into the universe.